we're taking it all. Diving deep into topics, we'll rise or we'll fall. Every episode's a journey, a ride through the maze. Join us on this path, let's ignite the blaze. So grab your headphones tight, let's go for a ride. With every spin and twist, we'll couldn't run and hide. The Prime Directive, where the laughter's alive. Society's reflections, let's help each other thrive. Politics and culture, oh what a
Which
blend.
I have to say,
Join on the journey and let's set the trend.
Okay. Well, welcome back to our discussion here. So we're going to change gears a little bit and chat now about the importance of these little guys. We brought them back in. This is KK, and that's Squirt, and there are little rescues that we get from the National Mill Dog Rescue. Boy, what a great organization! If any of you out there on the interwebs are interested in supporting one particular nonprofit. This is a lady who was a retired nurse named Teresa Strader, and you want to talk about good leadership, the opposite of bad leadership. This lady basically goes around the country and she saves animals that are dogs that are in these puppy mills, which are just that's the definition of evil right there, a puppy mill. Anyway, this lady goes and saves dogs, and we've decided that we want to make a small difference in the world by doing the same and adopting dogs from the mill, from the nmdr, and who knows, if you check them out online, maybe you want to do the same. But yeah, why don't we discuss?
They're way more mellow today than they were last time.
Yeah,
thankfully.
They were feral last time. I think it's because they've gone outside and gone potty and everything.
Oh, there you go.
And this time they're much more relaxed and stuff. So, and that's Squirt and KK, and she's a Shih Tzu Maltese mix, and this one's pretty much pure Maltese. And yeah, so maybe that might be a good place to start. Like the opposite, knowing a definition of something is to know its opposite. You know, that's the yin yang. It's the weird thing about nature. You have to know the opposite to actually know what something is. And so the opposite of evil, pets, dogs, cats, pets, you know, the opposite of evil.
The love. It's the unconditional love.
Yeah.
And there are two things, you know, you mentioned these horrible situations with the puppy mills. Another horrible situation is something that we still have in society today: fur farms.
I can't believe that's actually.
It's still a thing. It's still a thing, and
it must be a status thing. It's a status thing.
Who still buys real fur?
I know what kind of jackass buys fur.
Yeah.
Let me guess. Andrew Tate. God.
All I know,
just to be as offensive as possible.
Yeah, it's still a thing. And oftentimes when we do talk about these rescues, when we talk about there's one that there are a couple of them. They rescue foxes from fur farms, and from these just downright awful circumstances and conditions. I think the organization is called Save a Fox, and it's a couple who runs it, and it was originally started by this incredible woman who just does just that. She actually works with these fur farms, and she's willing to take in as many of these foxes to rescue them. And it's kind of interesting because oftentimes the question is, if I donate, if we save a fox, what difference is that going to make? You're right. It may not make a blanket, unilateral across the board difference, but for that one animal, it made all the difference.
That's right.
But how does she? That's like Save a Starfish, the parable of the little girl throwing the starfish back in the
Maybe I'll get
water.
that one.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But what? So the foxes. What does she save? I mean, she saves like foxes that are breeding foxes? I mean, how does this work if it's a fur farm as opposed to a puppy mill? I'm trying to wrap my head around this.
No, that's actually a really good question. I don't know the exact ins and outs, but she is trying to save animals that the fur farm may not want.
Okay, so maybe like their fur is not of the condition they're looking for.
Correct. And instead of that animal being euthanized, she steps in and saves the animal, which is genuinely remarkable.
Okay.
The fact that there are so many other organizations that do some incredible work, and I believe they're actually located in Minnesota. But turning this in a different direction altogether, this conversation anyway, and talking about how we can tie things together. Talking about unconditional love and talking about love in general and connection and care and having a sense of purpose goes back to one of the earliest episodes that we actually did on the show, specifically talking about how there are pivotal moments in the existence of certain people that could have turned that person around to experience something that they may never have had in their life before. Because you brought up a fantastic example while we were on break. Would you mind sharing a little bit more about that example? It was in the correctional.
Yep. Liesl and I, we watch all those correctional, Dateline and
shows.
We're addicted to the,
True
murder.
crime.
One of the episodes was this is a while back, but it was a Dateline episode on how they reform prisoners. It was like prisoner lockup or something like that. And there was one particular prisoner, I'll never forget the guy's name. It was Baca. And this guy had killed 3 people, gang stuff, he just machine gun people down with like a pistol machine gun. Obviously life sentences and stuff in prison back east somewhere. And he was introduced to the dog training program. They were trying to experiment with ways to reach prisoners that seemed unreachable, and because he'd also been in some fights and nearly killed somebody in prison, and he just kind of like just starting to demonstrate true psychotic behavior. And so they introduced him to dogs. And I believe it was Chocolate Labs or something. It was his particular dog breed that they were introducing him to. And over the course of a couple of years of just going through the training, and you can't do it alone, right? Because they don't trust the dogs alone with any just prisoner. You have to be supervised. But over the course of a couple of years, he started developing a conscience. The love of dogs literally started their unconditional, what they are, what Canis familiaris is, it started changing this human's heart, who was by all
perspective,
and by all measures was just a lost cause, a lost psychotic cause that had murdered people, and was like happy and laughing about it in the courtroom, that kind of a thing. They showed his trial, and he was like laughing at the families who were screaming and crying, and it's truly despicable. And then to see him now was astonishing, because he, you train the dogs for to be like support animals and stuff like that, and then you have to say goodbye to them after training them for like 6 months. And at the end of it, this is a guy that was a stone cold killer, stone cold. When he was younger, in his 20s. Now he's like in his 30s, late 30s. And so there's probably something to that too, that as you age, your brain gets less, testosterone and stuff, and, the hostility stuff is probably decreased as well. But he was like just crying like a baby. But he knew he had to let go of these dogs, and he'd named them, and he was, and then he was able to actually have friends. The guards were like, yeah, this guy was, we were always had tasers and handcuffs, and we were ready when riot gear, whenever we had to go into this guy's cell, because he would punch out guards and stuff. And we had to, he had years added to his sentence for shanking some people, and dogs changed him. This creature somehow changed this guy, and it doesn't work with everybody.
No,
but there's something special about this. I know I've seen some specials as well on like National Geographic, and I show it to the kids that I teach too. It's called The History of the Dog, I think is what it is. Or A Man Created Dog. That's it. A Man Created Dog. Check that one out. And it tracks the history of like how human beings have come into contact with these creatures at least 33,000 years ago, at least. And because they've got evidence of a dog paw print of a puppy paw print right next to a human foot. They've got that in the caves. But these creatures, something about them, they don't live as long. So that's one, right? You connect with a creature that you're going to outlive in most cases. They provide like a level of comfort that is just unmatched by almost anything. We know that the statistics, right, say that you're going to live longer if you have a dog. Mm-hmm. You're going to live longer. You're going to have lower blood pressure. You're less likely to have cancer. You're less likely to... there's this whole list of things online.
They create a sense of purpose. Ultimately, that's a
routine,
a sense of purpose, a sense of belonging. Yeah. You also get affection from a creature that, to what you mentioned about life, of course, being finite, but for us, they're part of our lives. Mm-hmm. But in most cases, to them, we are their whole life.
That's right. And they act that way, right?
And they act that way.
They act like the true Stoics. They're in the moment.
Every time.
They're in the moment right now. They're not thinking about their car, their insurance, their mortgage payment, their drama going on in their life, their job. They're in this perfect moment of instinctual just
existence.
Well, that's why
nowness.
Eric was
right
saying,
now.
When we retire, will we still have dogs? Because when we travel, we have to think about what to do with them and the added responsibility and
100%.
Thinking about, would it be nice not to have that? And I said, I see the pros and cons here, but the other thing to think about is when we're retired, having them is so good for a routine.
It is.
And so not having them, I think, would not be good because we would lose the routine of work already.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And then having them would keep us active. And that's the biggest fear is when you retire, you're less active and then everything starts to decline.
Yeah.
I've seen that happen with people. And so I just think that's another benefit and reason that the health statistics are the way they are is they keep you busier. They keep you, they demand that you do things with them. And so an important consideration, I think, for people who think, as I get older, I just don't want to have them. But think about the pro side to keeping them around even as you're aging, because they demand that you take them out. They demand that you pay attention. They get you outside.
They do. And they just... they're not always easy because they in this case, because these were male rescues, they never knew how to like this one still doesn't really know grass. Like she's the newest member of the family, so she's like getting used to things. Trounces around grass and is like, what in the world is this stuff? But for the right people, they just offer a level of connection that it reaffirms that there's something special. I don't know what the right word is. There's something numinous. There's something transcendentally connective with this creature. There's a reason why a guy like Jack London can write a book like Call the Wild.
Yeah. Absolutely.
There's a reason why,
there are books like White Fang.
Yeah, that was the second one.
Yeah.
But Native American cultures, the shaman, there's this idea that the spirit animals and things like that, there's this connection that something about animals.
It makes us more human.
Yeah. It it makes you realize that the universe is not just about you. You know, you're connected to something that is more primal. It is more ancient. It's not just this limited amount of time that you've got. When you're with dogs, they pull you into the moment and away from the artificialness of our society, which is dehumanizing, the technocratic craziness, you know. Like I could sit here and pet this one for hours and hours and not stare at my phone, right? And the more you stare at your phone, the more unhappy people typically get. So, you know, maybe this is one of the answers. You know, I wonder if a guy like Trump is probably too old, but maybe his son, you know, or any of the aristocracy class, get him a dog, and then don't let their psychopathic, crazy, you know, caretakers, you know, anywhere near the animals. Let them make a connection with an animal. You know, it worries me. Like right now, like I know that there's this, is it Christy Nome or whatever? She shot her dog or something like that. I'm like, it's hard for me to understand how people could do that or be like that, and you don't want people like that anywhere near power.
Which, for the White House, isn't this the very first administration that actually does not have an official pet in the house?
That would track with,
I think so.
with the level of
unless
mentality.
we're going like further back and we don't have stats on presidential pets, but
Right,
that
like
I think in the
Washington or
modern
whatever.
day, yeah.
Well, Washington had horses. We know he
Yeah.
was connected with his horses and deeply connected with them because it's life and death when you're
Especially, at that particular historical time frame
Sure.
and everything. And there are also Jackson Galaxy, who is, interestingly enough, if memory serves, he's from Boulder, Colorado, and he runs a cat rescue, and he worked at a cat rescue. He went to a prison where the prisoners get to keep the cats permanently if they display certain behaviors, if they show a certain level of responsibility, and he went to the prison to see how it all went, how the cats integrated, and it was the most remarkable thing. Again, showing that deeper connection and how it changed the entire environment. How the COs, the correctional officers, were kind of reflecting on the same thing of we feel significantly better about working in this population or the subset of the population, and we feel not just safer, but we actually feel appreciated. There's just a different vibe.
I would think cats would be easy because the prisoners could have a litter box right in their cell. And, and they would just go out with them when they take their walks, and it'd be right there. Wouldn't have to be on a leash or anything.
No, not really. Yeah, they just kind of leave him, you know, because cats need very little space as it is, and all the space that they would get is plenty for them.
But I would wonder if they'd worry about like other prisoners getting a hold of them or something.
From what I understand, only once they reach certain stipulations or requirements, then they are allowed the privilege to have. And I think
that's
what
I understand too. Because you can't just let any. Because some people are crazy. Some people are Michael Vicks, you know, that are gonna.
Or also just in anger, like in anger or
frustration,
or just hurting an animal in anger.
Man, on my evil scale, that would be way up there.
It is.
That's
I
way
mean,
up there.
it is, but
if you can be cruel to an animal, that's got to be level. What's the guy's name? Michael Stone, right? He has the levels of evil. He got 1 through 22 or whatever.
Oh, they're 22. Oh my
for him, he was a psychologist and stuff, and he starts with like, for him, it's usually people that murder, and that's where he kind of starts with like a self-defense murder is like 1, and then goes all the way up to the top. And so, at our school, by the way, we do have a therapy dog, or had, I should say.
Oh yeah.
We had a therapy dog named Tucker. And it's incredible to see like my autistic kids or kids with emotional traumas,
behavioral problems.
That dog will show up, and it's like the pressure level of the whole building just relaxes. It just goes down. So much of being a good teacher today, I think, is just about that, about creating conditions where you're de-escalating and you're de-stressing, and you're allowing pressure releases for kids that are dealing with
They
just
do that
craziness.
at campus. On campus, they have pets come around like finals week and different high stress times of the semester, and they have like them in common areas where students can just go and pet dogs.
The whole idea to be a good teacher today, really, if you really want to be a good teacher, if you're driven to make a difference, it's all about making that connectivity with kids and creating an environment where they feel safe with you. If you can get them to just feel safe with you, that you're not going to hurt them and you're trying to help them and not coerce them and reduce them to a test score, but you're actually truly trying to get them to another better place, then boy, you got a friend. Then you're 90% of the way to where you need to be in the classroom with kids. Then they'll listen to you about Maslow's hierarchy of needs, or the history of Europe, or quadratic equations and Pythagorean theorem, or whatever it is, but as long as you create that condition first.
So as we close the chapter, lend us your ear. The Prime Directive's calling, so let's persevere. To where the laughter's alive, society's reflections, let's help each other thrive. Politics and